the addition of some extra work that we wanted the consultant to do. And so we have got that scope of work back from the consultant, and I have started the modification of the contract so that we can get that portion of the work done. And that portion included, and correct me if I need to add more or whatever, but it's looking at Main Street and what sort of intermittent measures we can do to improve traffic on Main Street. You know, what Heber City can do to, you know, help the local traffic maybe use a different street instead of Main Street. Looking at some possible redevelopment ideas and parking and things like that. Trying to think of what else we had them look at.
You know, I think it's important to point out the contract value is 270.
Yes, it's going to be 270. It was 200, and then that was from UDOT, and then our region contingency, or our region director, kicked in an extra $50,000 to help the city and the county figure out what to do about Main Street and kind of try to help with that before the bypass comes in. And then Heber City kicked in $20,000 to help with the redevelopment and the Main Street study as well.
Yeah, I think it was great that Mayor Potter saw that we had a separate effort going underway in Heber City to look at some of the design aspects of Main Street and Main Street character, and she suggested that we combine the UDOT piece with the piece that Heber City was looking at and try to create some efficiencies out of that, and I think that's going to happen.
Have you guys pulled in that Charest study that Heber had Utah State do several years ago now? They have some ideas on that that could, yes, I think, provide something to look at.
And our consultant does have access to that. We showed that to them, and that's going to be taken into consideration. So there will be a couple public meetings related to that. So there will be one, it's part of the scope of work to meet with the public and kind of do a bit of an idea gathering, from what people, to find out kind of what the public wants and what ideas they may have. And then we'll have one kind of towards the last month or two of the project as well, to show them kind of what's been resolved, or what they've come up for solutions to the problems.
Is there a time in that process that, as a city councilman, I could be involved?
Yeah.
Put some effort with our engineering, whatever we're talking about, 100 South, 100 East, 100 West, 100 East is kind of a local alternative to using Main Street, so that we'd have some local transfer and using back accesses to business. I'd like to at least share that with them at some stage.
Yes, and there are, in the scope of work, there's mandatory meetings with the city and the county, and also to present to the city council too, and the county councils.
Okay, thank you.
So that is covered.
I'm way behind on information, so bear with me. Where are the trucks going to go, particularly the gasoline trucks?
So
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Really?
I'll take $1 million in. They're staying on Main Street.
Yeah, more than likely they will stay on Main Street, but that's what the study is going to be looking at, is what type of facility would it take to make that bypass and make it function the way the public wants it. But the reality is that is going to be about 2 miles out of direction for them, and that's a lot of time for them to make up, and fuel and everything. So
I was in Little Orange, Texas one day, and those trucks were rolling by with all that gasoline, and there was an accident, and it was an explosion, and 3 young boys were killed. Now, it petrifies me that those gasoline trucks are whizzing through Main Street, and for them to remain there is really scary. I drive this every day through here. I don't know.
Yep. I do agree with you. I live here too, so I know exactly what Main Street's like. But the reality is, it becomes an enforcement nightmare for law enforcement, because we could sign it as no truck, no trucks allowed. But then how do we enforce that? Because they have to make deliveries, they have to deliver fuel, they have to deliver food, they have to deliver all the goods for commercial, and
I'm
then,
just talking about the
Yeah.
gas, the 1267s.
yeah. Well, it's kind of the same way. I mean, are we expecting law enforcement to follow every single gas truck to come through to make sure they're making a delivery? I mean, the reality of it is that that's just simply next to impossible. I'm sure the law enforcement officers would agree that they don't have time to follow every truck that comes through.
So there's going to be a bypass, but the trucks are not going to be required to take that bypass?
You can't necessarily require them to take that. So you have to make it attractive enough and fast enough to make them want to take it. It's just like any other vehicle on the road. You know, people want to take the fastest, most easily used road to get where they want to go. And so what more than likely what the bypass is going to do, and I can't guarantee this is what's going to come out, but it looks like people will want, that are going from Park City to Utah County, will take that route. And that'll take about 40% of the cars off, you know, roughly.
The door to bringing the bypass around the Highway 40 again has just about been closed. The study that was done, and is there going to be another one of those? When they did that study, about 70% of the traffic was Park City, there was Provo and that direction, which will pull that much that way, hopefully.
Yeah, in fact, that's one of our scope of work items, Kendall. We have a company that's already deployed sensors out there right now to collect data. It says of all the through trips in Heber Valley, the trips that do not stop in Heber Valley, where are they coming from? Where are they going to? And when we did this 10 years ago, Kendall's referring to, we discovered that about, what was it, 3/4 of the trips were from Park City to Provo. And that's intuitive because you're connecting one metro area to another metro area in Salt Lake. Heber and Park City are in between. Going out to Vernal, there's not as much population, so you don't have as many trips doing that. We're restudying that right now.
So that'll be updated.
Yeah, that will be updated. And, you know, there's been development and other things that have happened in the past since that's been done. So I would expect those numbers to change a little bit. I think the Corden study, correct me if I'm wrong, looked at non-stop trips.
That's right, through trips.
So people that weren't stopping at all. And now I think there's quite a bit more development and more things to do or purchase things that they're stopping more than they would. But that's my guess.
So just a political question maybe, how, I keep hearing, and I understand UDOT says we can't stop them from coming down Main Street and they own it. Two things, if we were to take it over as a city by trade, could we stop them?
Yes, you could.
And secondly, so that's one thing we maybe at least ought to look at. Secondly, how did they decide who could go on Legacy Highway and who couldn't? I mean, it seems like they could decide there who went.
That is a good question. I don't know.
That was a negotiated settlement between an environmental group and the Utah Department of
So we
Transportation.
have to get environmental groups involved here? Is that why?
I would recommend that.
Are we going to soon quit calling it the bypass road and call it what we should be calling it, which is something else?
So that is
Good
part
luck.
of the scope of work, is to determine, you know, what we should call it. Let's come up with a name that does not have negative connotations, which bypass
Western
does.
Scenic Route around here.
Yeah.
Unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we're trying to do with the study, is trying to set realistic expectations, but we also want, you know, input from the county and from the city to determine, you know, what are your goals? What do you really want the city and the county to be 20, 30 years from now? And let's try to make this, you know, fit into that plan, rather than, you know, here it is, and, you know, good luck with whatever you want, you know. We want to work together to make it work the way you want it to be.
Well, I agree with what you said about the truckers, that they're the most efficient route. But if you make Main Street not attractive to them by perhaps timing lights in a certain way, lowering the speed, then the bypass would actually, even though it's a longer route, be more efficient from a time perspective. Is that something that has been considered?
soon as you start messing with the timing, you know, to make it not attractive for the trucks, you're gonna make it not attractive for everyone else too. But there is,
That's okay.
We have more time to deal with it.
yeah, we have brought up the fact that, you know, we could reduce the speed limit on Main Street, but that was not well received.
Who controls the timing of the lights?
Mayor?
UDOT does because it's a state
So that's
road.
the state anyway.
Yeah. We probably need everyone when you speak to identify yourselves for the recording.
And is it picking them up or is it on the mic? It will only pick up what's on the mic, but we've got an alternate recorder as well. So I guess.
Speak loud and give them your name.
Yeah, there you go. Speak loud and say your name.
Who said
Thank you.
You can hear me.
Okay, any other questions on the West Loop?
I think everyone's hope was, like what Ron said though, you get the bypass in place, hopefully Heber City would take over Main Street, do angled parking and medians and slow it down so it is not attractive to use Main Street. If any of you have not been down to Provo's Main Street lately, holy cow, it's amazing how many people are out there. The restaurants are full and it's just incredible going on a weeknight.
Yeah, and I believe that's on the table, you know, if that's what Heber City and the county want to do, you know, that certainly could be discussed. But, you know, I think that we're going to start with the study and that can just be something that we carry on and decide. I guess it's really what does the city and the county want?
And Terry Newell told me there is precedent for that, and that's something that could be considered, so I think, you know, it's a good thing to aim for.
You know, and she no longer, just so everybody knows, Terry Newell is no longer our region director, so she's not over this. She has been given a promotion to be deputy director over the whole state of Utah in the Department of Transportation, but it's also over planning and things like that, so which she's really good at. But we have a new region director, which is Robert Clayton. So I'm sure he was not able to come up and introduce himself tonight because he had other commitments down in Richfield tonight. So, any other questions about the bypass or the alternate route here? Okay, I guess I was asked to talk about construction for 2018 in Wasatch County. We have on our GIS map, we have work going on SR 113 between Midway and Heber, which is also known as Midway Lane. And we are doing a safety improvement at 600 West. And that, does anybody want me to put in the satellite image, make it a little bit more visible for everybody? That includes some curb and gutter going along just north of the county building by the canal, just on the very edge of Heber, and to 600 West. So there'll be curb and gutter along there, and we are reconfiguring the intersection there with some center turn lanes. We've noticed there's been some accidents there, and we want to try to avoid having those. So now there will be center turn lanes in there, and so the through traffic will go to the right and around them. And as part of that work, we're kind of redefining the bicycle trail that's there and making that a little more defined so that people know that it's there, and there's also defining the access and where vehicles come in and out off of 113 so that people jogging and biking will be able to know where those conflict zones are as well. And
Go further that way.
which way?
Yeah, more towards Midway.
More towards Midway?
I'm just, as part of that,
It ends right at the canal there, and we are putting some drainage.
no, the canal that way, but towards Midway. I think this came up in another one. Is there going to be any correction on that turn as you come around the corner, turn into what is it, Mayor?
Over here.
Mitchie Lane?
Mitchie
Mitchie
Lane.
Yes, actually that happened in the last commission meeting. It was approved that we have some money to put a center turn lane in there as well. So now what we've noticed is people will come around this curve and come up to Mitchie Lane and try to turn onto that, and then people coming from behind, they get stuck and they can't get around, and so there's been some rear end accidents there. And so now we'll have a center turn lane, we'll be able to widen that and allow vehicles to go around. And kind of tied with that, I did get a few questions related to the River Road, this intersection at River Road and 113, Midway Main Street. There was a signal that was warranted there, and we did some engineering on it and found that it would, we found some kind of difficulties with being able to install that signal because Midway Main Street has 3 lanes here and bike lanes, and then all of a sudden it narrows down to 2 lanes, and we'd have to widen it back out to 3 lanes right at this intersection. So it would be really wide, narrow, wide again, and that didn't quite fit with the consistency of what Midway Main Street should be. You know, after working with the city and discussing that with UDOT, we wanted to make sure that it was consistent all the way through. And so we put that project on hold, and we met with the mayor and some of her staff and decided we wanted to see what happened with the Mitchie Lane signal, or Mitchie Lane intersection, because now that Mitchie Lane is complete, we feel like more people are going to want to take that than used to take it. So we kind of want to see what impacts that's going to bring to this intersection here at River Road. So we feel like we're going to put the brakes on that for a little bit and see where it ends up once this improvement happens here at Mitchie Lane. So, and there is one other project, and I don't know the status of it, but Midway has a safe sidewalks project here, and basically that's what the city contracts out and puts in some sidewalk, and then UDOT reimburses them. And there's a section of sidewalk here that needs to be put in. So I don't know what the status of that is, Mayor, but it's something that I'll follow up with.
It's on what road?
It's on, I think it's
Charleston Road, isn't it?
Yep, it's on 113 as well. But since the schools are right over there, it's to connect up existing sidewalks. So I'll follow up with Michael and see where it's at for you.
Good man to follow up with.
And then, I don't know if anybody's really interested in this, but there have been some accidents up past Woodland on the SR 35 over Wolf Creek Pass. And we're going to be putting in some motorcycle safe guardrail in there. It basically prevents people from going underneath the guardrail and hitting the posts. So that's kind of a new experimental thing that's been in other countries, and I think this is like the 2nd location in the state that we're going to be putting that in. And that's going to be done this summer as well. So it's kind of it for this year. Next year there'll be a few more, but any other questions?
What about the turn lane at Tate Lane and 113? Is
Okay,
that this year too?
that will be next year. So we're completing the design work. We should be done with it and advertise it in about September, and then it'll be under construction next year.
And that'll widen that strip of 113
yes,
too, won't it?
It'll widen. I'll show you from basically just north of the bridge, because the bridge is fairly wide, but then it narrows down to basically no shoulder at all. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the whole roadway width is about 21 feet in some spots, and it's not a pleasant road to be on when a truck comes your way, and it's not a pleasant road to be on if you're a cyclist or a snowplow driver or anybody, because when those snowplows go past another truck or something, it's pretty scary. So we are going to be actually putting, I believe it's a 5-foot shoulder on there, and then there will be some barrier on each side 2 feet beyond that. So, but it will be a pretty big improvement safety-wise through there. And it's, like I said, from the river up to just past Tate Lane, and there's going to be a turn lane there at Tate Lane, a left-hand turn lane for the northbound traffic. Because obviously when there's events there, there's quite a few left turners there. So, and we don't want people backing up over the tracks if there's ever a train coming. So.
Hey Matt.
Yes.
Eric, When you said 5 feet, is that only on one side, or are you doing
No,
both?
it's on both sides.
Both sides 5 feet?
Yep.
Okay.
And we have to build some walls because there's a lot of wetlands in there, so we're trying to reduce the impact as much as possible. But yeah, it'll be a huge improvement for everyone in there. And then we have some funding coming up, I'm not sure exactly the year, to continue widening that further up into Midway and also south into Charleston.
What did you say the date was on that for starting phase 1?
It should be next year, next summer. We haven't defined to the contractor when they need to start, but they can't pave until April, which up here we really kind of can't start paving until May anyway. But there's some earthwork and things to do. So. And then also another update that I wanted to bring up was the section of 189 that is still 2 lanes past Deer Creek Island State Park. That was, we went through our last state transportation improvement program workshop, and it was funded. So we have funding to be able to start working on that in 2020, and we should be able to start construction of that in July of 2021. And there's 3 years of funding there, but just wanted to update everybody. That was our highest priority for the whole region, was to try to fund that segment of roadway. And
It'll come clear around to the Charleston 113 turn.
Correct.
And at this point, we don't know if it's going to be a side-by-side traffic or if the one's going to go up on the hill.
No. We're probably going to release that as an alternative way to advertise the project, kind of get some input from contractors to tell us which way they feel would be the most efficient to be able to build it, and kind of come up with some innovative ways to do it. And it might be, but we want to explore some other alternatives to see what would be the best way to do it.
I put a plug in for UDOT right here. This is where my daughter was killed 4 months ago. And UDOT put up a sign right there, and you might see it going all the way down where they're going to widen that. It says, remembering Heather Peterson. You'll see the sign on both sides of the road. That's the area that he's talking about. But they were really good to work with on putting up the signs. We appreciate what you've done there, Matt.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, great. I'll push through this real quick and get us going on to the next couple topics. I wanted to talk to you briefly about our household and employment update that we've been doing with the cities. We had a couple meetings here in this particular room over the past 4 or 5 months and developed some new allocations for our transportation plan that we will update in June of 19. So we're going to go through a process of updating the regional transportation plan for Wasatch County. That folds into the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. You've seen these charts before, so I won't spend much time on them. But you can see population number on the top and then employment number or job numbers on the bottom. Our previous regional transportation plan went to the year 2040. We're going to go 10 more years with this new one, so we're going to go all the way to 2050. So we're going to add quite a bit of population there. What, another 9,000 population and another 3,000 jobs or so to place into different parts of the city, different parts of Wasatch County and Heber Valley. So you can see we've got some significant work to do in terms of where to place those, where to predict, where's the city going to grow. And what we do is we try to identify traffic analysis zones or these little census blocks to put these households and these jobs in. Basically, the city planners and city engineers advise us, they tell us where to do that, so that then the transportation model, the computer model that we use, uses that information to then predict where traffic will be in the year 2040, 2050. And any questions on that? I know that we've sent the maps out to everyone, and if you do have any updates for us, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to consider those final. Kendall, do you remember the number for when we become third class county? 31.5?
It's over 30, 31 something, yeah.
Getting close, huh?
Your
Well,
paper said 31 in 2017. What number is that from?
2017, is that what it
I'm
says?
sorry, yeah, 2017, it had 31 something, I just want to read back in.
We would have got that.
31,470 in 2017.
Well, that's I think that's the governor's office of planning.
Yeah, we would have done that.
And it doesn't take into account primary or secondary homes, so it'll probably be the 2020 census that'll firm it up and tell us what's really here.
But if you're over now, Kendall, could we not make application to the state to change the designation?
I don't think we want to until they tell us.
Very good. I didn't know if you wanted to or not. I didn't know if that was desirable. But they do I got it. They do a census estimate every year, and that
And I
becomes an
think that's
official
what
number.
they're using.
And so that's what you could utilize. Whichever party wants me to look at that, let me know. Whichever party doesn't, then I'll try to work for them.
Well, I've talked to the lieutenant governor about it and says Randy had pulled the trigger and he indicated it'd probably be the census.
Got it.
To have a firm number.
Any questions on allocation of population and employment for the next plan?
You mentioned Heber,
Yeah.
and I guess you do it for the county.
Yes.
So this is a precursor to a later agenda tonight. Have you got estimates on that area north of Heber that's now in the county, whether it became city or not? We need to know what's out there. Is that part of these studies?
It is, and Tony participated in the allocation, Heber City's planner with us, and helped us try to understand what some of those numbers could be based on the proposed zoning. So we have those estimates as well.
So you have those, Tom, those numbers?
Yep, and we can get those to you. If Tony needs any additional mapping or any figures on that, we can show you how that turned out. Any other questions on population or jobs? If not, I'm going to move to transit and talk about a transit